Welcome everybody to episode 3 of the How Many House Cats podcast. We are joined here today with the usual brother Parker Scott, and then the sister Martina Vergowan, legitimate sister, who is here to talk a little bit about her life and the fun stuff she's up to. So how's everyone doing today?
I'm doing well. I've been a fan of How Many House Cats for years.
2 weeks now.
Years, yeah. And it's just an honor to be here with a couple of my idols. They really inspire me in the podcast space, so I'm stoked. How are you feeling, Parker?
I'm feeling all right. Got a coffee, got a beer, and I got a fucked up mic.
Very
So,
questionable mic situation.
Yeah, this mic is gonna have some troubles throughout this podcast, but we're gonna make it work.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we are.
We got props on props holding that thing up.
Yeah, it's a little janky, but it'll work.
Hey, what can you do?
I mean, you got to be a little creative when you got your first guest on. We're not fully prepared to be expanding at this rate, but with the massive success again, I mean, episode 2 just absolutely
It
took
blew
off.
up.
So
It redefined the internet.
exactly. So, do we want to first delve into Martina, or do we have any objections to taking the conversation
So
elsewhere?
I have one thing I wanted to bring up, Calvin.
Absolutely.
And, last episode we were talking about how high Mount Everest was.
Right.
And you said that a mile was, what'd you say,
I
3,700?
thought 37,000 feet, but I guess that seems really
So
high.
a mile is 5,280 feet.
Yeah, okay.
I just wanted to, clean the slate
Completely
right
wrong.
off the
Yeah,
bat.
it does seem very wrong. And if I'd have thought about it for a second, it's right. But I think of the Nickelback song, join the Mile High Club at 37,000
Yeah.
feet, and I was like, Mile High. I mean, yeah, probably not a good piece of material to use as a reference for a
Yeah.
mile, but I didn't know the number off the top of my head, so
Hey,
I
man,
checked it out there.
Nickelback at the best of times is a pretty reliable source for information. So, you can't be blamed.
I know. I should have seen it coming. Yes, Martina.
Yeah, I just want to briefly interject here that since I've been brought on as a scientist or a researcher, I really appreciate the fact checking you did, Parker, by going beyond Nickelback. I think that was a great start, but I respect bringing the facts back to the community. So thank you for that.
Word up.
I think it's very important, with how many ears this podcast is reaching now. We do really run the risk of spreading misinformation. So
Yeah.
we do have to keep that tight. So I thank you for
Yeah.
the correction, Parker.
No problem, anytime.
Word.
Happy to keep us accountable.
So, any other housekeeping items? Any addresses to last episode? Anything moving forward?
That's all. I think we jump into
That's it?
Martina here.
All right. So I think the best way to begin this is just ask you about your whole journey getting here. So when did your interest in medicine start, and how have you turned that into the reality that is today?
Well, before I get into that, I guess I should maybe just provide some context for the audience here on
It's a great
what,
idea.
what here today in medicine means. So I just finished up a nursing degree, and I'm starting med school next week. Pretty excited for that. And yeah, I guess like how I ended up physically here in this seat is my brother and his friend decided to start a podcast, and they thought they needed a good guest. And I'm like, Calvin, I like to chat. I like to tell people about the stuff that I do. So here I am. And then how did I get into medicine? Wow. How far back should I go?
All the way.
All the way. All right, let's take it back to
I
about
was born at a very young age.
I was born in 99 as a baby. And
I wasn't. I was born at 5.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyways, sorry. You continue.
Context, Calvin doesn't like babies very much. And so we just like to say that he bypassed all stages of being a child up to about age 5. Anyway,
I never took part in that.
yeah, when I was in about grade 2 or 3, I found myself really interested in cancer books. and that was a little problematic for someone who could maybe read at that level, to read cancer books without actually understanding what cancer was and how you got it. So that led to a pretty intense fear of almost everything, because I thought I was going to get cancer. And it was pretty dark times. And I guess I wouldn't say that's where my interest in medicine started, but that was kind of when I started to gravitate towards things like that, you know.
Things of the medical nature.
Things of the medical nature, yeah.
Indeed.
And so I thought I wanted to be a vet for a while. Grew up on a farm, went to vet camp. Really fun. It's where all the cool kids went. You just toured vet school and learned about it.
How old were you when you went to vet camp?
I'd have been 14-ish. Yeah, yeah. And then I realized that I didn't really appreciate the fact that the patients couldn't talk. And so I would say it was about there that I started thinking medicine was going to be the move. I did Take Your Kid to Work day with a rural family doc in grade 9. And I kind of just was a med school gunner from there. And you know, I graduated high school and I was like, okay, let's do this med school thing. And I kind of, you know, I set out doing the science degree, the route everyone thinks, you know, you want to go to med school, you take this medical science degree, moved across the country for the program, and I did 2 years of that, and I absolutely hated it. Not a basic science person. I was like, there's no people involved in this. I would say I'm an introvert, but I'm a people person, and so my science degree I just found very not fulfilling. I wanted an application, and I have so much respect for people that do basic science, because it really leads us to where we are today, but my interest is a lot more sort of on the clinical side, working with people and kind of applying the hard work people do in labs. So anyway, this takes us to 2019. I just finished the second year of my science degree, and it was brutal. And I sat down one day, had a full-on mental breakdown, and the next day I had switched into nursing. And so that was a bit of a grind. Started nursing in January 2020, so prime time to start nursing.
At a different school.
Yeah, at U of C. Yeah, came back to Alberta. Thanks, Kelvin. Started nursing at U of C, and so, you know, if you have been on the earth for the last couple of years, you'll know that was right before COVID started. So I've actually never really worked in a healthcare system not impacted by COVID, and I think that's just pretty interesting from a journey perspective. Is like I have been doing clinical placements and stuff in the hospital, but I've never known healthcare pre-pandemic. So I think that's just an interesting little piece of the story. And I guess my nursing background, I ended up working in the NICU, so little small babies. I was a NICU baby myself, so really full circle, loved that.
What is NICU, Martina?
Oh, it's the neonatal intensive care unit, so it's where really small or sick babies go in preparation for going home when they're not ready to go home in a couple days with their parents.
Are these typically premature babies, or what does that look like?
Can be. There's a whole bunch of reasons babies end up in the NICU, but yeah, prematurity. If it's been a really complicated pregnancy, sometimes babies just aren't big enough to go home. So we actually have, when babies are born, there's a certain weight, and if they don't meet that weight, they'll get admitted to the NICU.
What is the weight?
Oh gosh, you're putting me, I think it's 1,600 grams, but that could be so wrong.
So that's 1.6 kilograms.
Yeah, that sounds
right?
about right, actually.
Which is
three and a half
7.
Don't hold me to this. Alberta Health Services was not consulted in that last statement, and I'll give us a little addition for next week. Maybe Parker can toss it in right at the start.
I apologize on Martina's behalf if your child ended up in the NICU because she doesn't know the weight threshold.
Thankfully, I was never responsible for making that decision on my own, so we should be in the clear.
Never mind.
So anyway, they quite literally come to the NICU to fatten up and be legally allowed to go in their car seat and fit and go home. So it really just depends on the baby. So yeah, that was nursing, and then throughout the journey, so I've done a pretty good amount of orthopedic research, which all started from something I decided to do pretty impulsively after high school. It was a bit of a dark time in my life, and I really just felt like I I needed something. I don't know what I was looking for really to this day, but somehow I found myself in yoga teacher training and had this amazing mentor, just the coolest person, maybe one of the coolest people I've ever met, an orthopedic surgeon, a female orthopedic surgeon, which is pretty rare, who did Reiki in the operating room and taught yoga classes about the chakra system. And
What is Reiki, Martina?
Reiki is like an energy healing form. So you don't actually touch the person, but you just kind of work with the energy in their body, and it's pretty hippie stuff. I don't think it's very evidence based. I haven't.
It's on the holistic side.
Yeah, holistic. That's a good way to explain this. This kind of first person I had in the healthcare scene as a mentor. So I was looking for a job after yoga teacher training, and
Real quick too, what does orthopedic mean?
orthopedic means like bones and joints and muscles. So you break an ankle, you're going to go see an orthodoc for surgery. So and then, to tie that back to my mentor I've discussed, it was cool to learn from her as a instructor in yoga teacher training because she had such a cool perspective on anatomy and really had a great understanding of that. Anatomy being how your body works and moves and how everything is connected. So she kind of approached teaching from that perspective, and just a really cool lady. Anyway, I could talk about her for a long time. Let's move on. I sent out an email to her saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you think you could send my resume around? And that's how I landed a spot in orthopedic research and met my mentor, who his name's Neil. And we've worked together for 5 years now, and I was like playing basketball in his basement with his kids last night. Like we're good friends, and started off as he looked me straight in the face one day and said, I hired you just because you were a warm body, right? So I didn't have a lot of skills coming into research, but I've made it work. Yeah.
Very nice. I have one quick thing. Do you mind taking your foot off the table, please? It is indeed bouncing the microphones.
For sure.
I'm mildly concerned about the implications on the sound.
Also, real quick, I'm gonna kill my audio and handhold this mic.
All right, sounds
Cool.
good. Are you gonna kill our audio as well, Parker? All right. Well, I guess then I would like to go into a bit further detail on your research and what you've started, since we've got the journey along the way. So you started your work with Neil 4 years back, and once you were hired, where did that go? How did your research start, and what have you done along the way, and where is it at today?
Okay, yeah. So before I get into this, I guess I just want to say I can be a bit tangential and maybe a little hard to follow. So thanks for sticking with me. And if I get carried away and you're listening to this and you think, "Wow, I'm super confused," yeah, I probably am a little bit as well. So research. My first day, I sat down in a chair, and my boss looked at me and said, my boss Neil looked at me and said, all right, so are we doing this project or what? And I said, okay, sure. And what the project was looking at the relationship between weather patterns and orthopedic trauma volumes. And I think this is something that any listener can understand, especially if you happen to live in and around the Calgary area, is sometimes the conditions outside are really slippery and kind of sketchy. Or in the summer, people come to Calgary, they ride their bikes, they do outdoor activities. So we would expect that when the weather's bad or when people are out moving a lot, doing more outdoor activities, you see more orthopedic trauma. And orthopedic trauma meaning you are outside, you do something, lands you in the emergency room, and then you need orthopedic surgery. Surgeons have known this for a long time, and you can hear it in it. If you walk into a hospital on a snowy day, people will say, oh, it's going to be busy, there's going to be lots of people in today, and nobody had put evidence behind this, which kind of blows our minds a little bit. I mean, it's sort of one of those things that you're like, this is so simple, why has nobody actually researched it and done something about it? And it was a really great place for me when I was starting off in my research career, because it's not really technical. There's some papers I've helped with that are about, X-ray versus CT in imaging of the scaphoid, and it's just an interesting paper.
What's a scaphoid?
Oh, good question, Calvin.
There's going to be a lot of definitions going on today.
No, I got to keep it pretty chill. I actually use that as an example. So it's like, what's a scaphoid? That's my point. There's things that are really technical. Yeah, and the scaphoid is actually, fun fact, it's in the anatomical snuff box of your hand, quite literally, because if you were to, sniff some drugs, you'd probably do it off your hand right here if you see that little triangle. So the scaphoid is right under there.
I can tell you're a big drug user.
Yeah, well, I did present on the scaphoid once, and then I had to look up why it was called the anatomical snuff box, and this is how I got to where we are. So, yeah. Anyway, there's papers like that are really technical, and then this paper or this project where we looked at weather and orthopedic trauma, it was a great place for me to start because it wasn't highly technical and I had no skills, and it's a project that can be applicable to the lives of anyone, and it's something that my grandparents understand it. Parker and Calvin sitting here today, not big medical dudes, they understand it, and I think that's part of what makes the project really cool. So what we did was we took 11 years of data from 2008 to 2018 in Calgary, and we collected all the patients that came in to emerge with an orthopedic complaint and had surgery, and we took 11 years of weather data, and then we did some stats on that and compared them, and what we found was that you can predict orthopedic trauma if you know the weather conditions and the time of year. So the key findings were, not surprisingly, high amounts of trauma in winter season, independent of weather conditions. And so that's a little bit weird to follow, but we wanted to look at the impact of weather conditions, so snow and ice. But if you try to look at snow and ice, but you don't look at time of year independently, then you might get confounding, right? Like, you don't know, is it because it's December? Is it because it was snowy? So we had our weather variables and time of year in the same model, which allowed us to understand the impact of season. So just time of year alone, who cares about the weather, versus a certain time of year, add on those dangerous weather conditions.
So this
you guys with me?
This may be a premature question. You might end up covering this, but when you talk about time of year,
Yeah.
Why is it independent of weather that you're seeing these spikes in orthopedic cases?
Yeah. Okay. So just let me get there.
Okay.
Good question. Yeah. So we saw the highest trauma volumes in winter season. Then we saw slightly higher, so statistically significantly elevated trauma in summer as well. And then we saw quiet periods in the shoulder season, so fall and spring. And then when we add on our weather, we see again more trauma when there's ice and snow. And those were, snow and ice were pretty much the two weather variables that had consistent significance. There was a lot of other variables that we looked at, but they weren't significant in the model that we used. So to tie this back to Calvin's question, one of the reasons that we may see a strong season effect, especially in winter, is maybe the model we used to capture weather conditions isn't great. When we look at season and weather independent of each other, it's only independent of the other variables in our model. So if the variables we have don't actually capture the weather conditions that are dangerous, then we won't see significance. We'll see that in time of year instead. Does that make sense?
It does.
The other thing I'll add is I think there are certainly some things that increase orthopedic trauma that are season related and not weather related. So in Calgary, we saw the most trauma in the summer was in July, and the most trauma in the winter was in December. So most trauma in the winter and December, I mean, people come to Calgary if it's snowy and icy or whatever the case is. It's Christmas holidays, you have to go out, there's more moving parts. And I think about this like basic particle collision theory. You take the city of Calgary, that's your container, you put stuff in it, and those are your particles are your people, and then you give them a reason to move around faster, like a holiday, they're going to hit each other more. In other words, there's going to be more orthopedic trauma, not in the sense that people are running into each other, but just in the fact that there's an increased chance of
There's just more going on, right?
exactly.
And that's
Well-
really interesting theory too, because I mean it's the same way like temperature works inside a material, right? Like you heat it up, shit starts banging around. Like it's the same thing with people. It's just on a grander scale.
Exactly.
So I have one question that you may not be able to answer. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but did you see any kind of spike on daylight savings time? Because I do know there is a significant change in the number of car accidents in North America on the morning of the night that we lose an hour of sleep. And so I don't know if you know that off the top of your head, if there was any difference in the orthopedic volumes as well.
Yeah, so that's actually really interesting. We didn't look at that, and maybe we should. When we looked at time of year, we used a month, so we didn't actually look at each day. We just summed the trauma volumes for the month, and then for our predictive models, we did look at each day. But I guess what I'm saying is our statistical output. If we had done it for every day, I mean, it's not even really stats, right? It's just there was this many on this day and this many on this day. So we had to zoom out a little bit. But
11 years is a lot of data.
a lot of data, yeah. And so funny story. This just speaks to my ignorance when I started. Yeah, we're gonna do 2008 to 2018. We're gonna do 10 years of data. 2008 to 2018, 10 years. Well,
I
if-
seem to recall Excel nearly setting your laptop on fire when processing some of this data.
oh yeah. But we have 11 years of data because 2008 to 2018 is actually 11 years. And I realized that about 3 years into the project. I went, hang on a second. We got 11 years here, man.
Catastrophic failure.
Yeah, well, just a little extra data. I mean, big data sets are good, so here we are. But yeah,
Just more accurate results. Increase
Yeah.
that sample size,
Yeah.
baby.
increase N, man.
Increase N, exactly.
Yeah, N meaning the scientific community, N equals 5 would mean there's 5
The
people in your
number
study.
of subjects,
Yeah.
your base. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary of kind of the first stages. And to make this a little more interesting for listeners, there was probably 6 months of my time where I just stumbled around blindly, trying to teach myself things in Excel through various YouTube tutorials, many tears, lots of trial and error, and a little persistence, I would say, got us through over 220,000 emergency room presentations and 40,000 surgeries that we used in our
In the
data.
11 years?
Yeah.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
It's a ton of data.
Ton of data, yeah. And oh gosh, like I didn't even know how to get to the bottom of an Excel spreadsheet when I started. So I'm here with this darn thing that has 220,000 rows. My computer can't even open it, and I'm trying to scroll, and it freezes.
Just fucking scrolling for an hour and a half
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
get
And
down there.
I'm
Meanwhile,
alone.
it's literally melting.
yeah. And I'm alone in this office. I want to make a good impression, obviously. I don't know my boss Neil that well at the time. I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. I can do this. I actually couldn't. To this day, I've never been able to work with the data that way, and had to kind of find some creative solutions and rely heavily on our awesome statistician. We work with a PhD statistician who did a lot of the heavy lifting on the data because it was too heavy for me and way too heavy for my computer.
So I think one thing, and you just touched on it there, for those of you, if there's anyone listening who is looking at a potential path like this or being interested in research, one of the things I think that you've really demonstrated is that creative solution concept, because you're dealing with this kind of new frontier style of information. It sounds exotic, but I mean it's stuff that there aren't answers on Google as to how to do some of this stuff, and so being resourceful and being able to come up with creative solutions, I think, at least from what you've told me and from what I've seen, being around you through all of this, I think that's a huge aspect of it. So kudos to you, and for anyone listening, big pointer right there.
Yeah, and just to add on that a little bit, I think I would say is just go for it. You know, if you here's an example. So we looked at ice in our study, right? You can't just get ice from a weather sensor. So you can get temperature, fine, but you can't get ice. So I realized this and I thought, oh gosh, well, I don't know the first thing about ice formation. How are we supposed to look at ice in our study? And then I thought, who knows things about weather? Well, David Spence came to my grade 5 classroom and talked about the clouds. Maybe I should just send him an email and see.
There's got to be at least a couple listening that have seen David Spence
Yeah.
in their classroom in elementary
Yes.
school.
I'm not familiar with David Spence.
He's
Oh,
He's-
he's,
he's a
such a good
weatherman.
guy. Yeah.
weatherman.
An awesome
Yeah.
guy. So I just sent him an email and said, "Hey, I'm doing research. I need some help." And I think, I guess the second point here is he was so keen to help me, and there's been people I've emailed that never email me back, and there's been people that turn out to just be super awesome rock stars, and people that email me back are probably just, or that don't email me back are probably just busy living their lives. But I think the point is, like, shoot your shot. Don't be a chicken. Ask for help when you need it. Think creatively. Like, instead of thinking, I don't know how to build ice, think, okay, well, I'm gonna find someone who can help me figure out how to build a model for
That's
ice.
genuinely good advice for all aspects of life as well. As just, don't be afraid to ask for help. Just kind of shoot your shot, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Pretty much all aspects of life. That's good advice.
yeah, and I think the last kind of thing I'll add on this topic is I think there's real value in curiosity, and the other aspect of that is that proficiency breeds passion. So when I first started this project, I was like, okay, yeah, weather, orthopedic trauma, that's kind of interesting. Let's do it. And the more I've learned, the more curious I've become, and the more interested I am in the solution, and the better I get. So the more curious I am, the more I learn, the more I'm into it, and the better the research gets. And I think just throughout the journey, I had a lot of help, but it was me who drove the project forward. And I don't think I would have been able to do that if I wasn't able to say, this is actually really cool. Like, I have a reason to learn this, and I'm going to be curious and solve it. And so I think that, yeah, and that inspires creativity too, right? When you really want to find the answer, you don't get deterred by the fact that the Excel spreadsheet crashes your computer.
Word. So, Parker, do you have any questions where we're at right now? Because I did, I've got some more directions to take this, but there's 3 people.
Go ahead,
so.
Calvin.
All right. So, now that we kind of have an idea of what your research is, what are the practical applications of this research? So I know a little while ago you and I spoke about the index.
The index.
Yeah, the index is rad.
The ASFI.
There you go. So, if you wouldn't mind, could you get into it a little bit and talk about why this research is applicable, why it's not just information. How can we use this for betterment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just for any scientists that happen to be listening to How Many House Cats, we published our first paper in.
Sorry, that's just very.
That was a
comedic.
good meme.
That's
Yeah.
comedic to me. We draw a lot of academics to this podcast.
Yeah, I did try and slide that in there as a bit of a joke.
You never know.
You never know. But just, for credibility of the research, we did publish our first paper in 2021. We've done some other side projects. So we looked at how COVID impacted trauma volumes, published that, looked at the impact of weekends versus weekdays, published that. So we really have used this data and kind of established it in the scientific community. And so we did 2 things after that. We validated our findings in Edmonton. So we thought, we see this relationship in Calgary, we see snow, ice, time of year. Let's do it in another city, make sure it's not a fluke. We did that. Writing that manuscript has been just on the bottom of my to-do list forever, but spoiler alert, we did find very similar things. Right. And
insider information right there.
Yeah.
Parker, you're one of the first to know.
Yes.
It's also real in Edmonton.
I'm honored.
The weather in Edmonton also impacts people.
It happens.
Yeah, yeah. So so we see the findings of this research as being dual pronged. One is super simple from an idea or a concept perspective, but has a lot of red tape, and that is uh, staffing and preparing on the hospital side. So we don't need a fancy predictive weather model if we know that in certain times of the year there's going to be more trauma. Why don't we staff more, do more trauma surgery during those periods, and then just shuffle a little bit? So put a little less trauma resources in the seasons where we know there's going to be less trauma, increase the amount of other orthopedic surgery during those times so that we use the same amount of resources net, but we just use them better. We use them informed on these ebbs and flows, or informed.
Yeah, that kind of information is definitely useful for preparation, right?
Yeah, and the logistics of that are really complicated, but in theory, that would be kind of what we could do on the healthcare side or hospital side. And then what I think is most interesting is using this from an prevention, an injury perspective. No, injury prevention perspective.
There you go.
Where we say, okay, here are the conditions. Over the past week, this is your risk of slipping and falling. So, wow, sorry.
That squirrel just fucking jumped from one tree to the other, man. That was
squirrels doing some
the fucking
acrobatics
squirrels are
up to the
flying.
They heard
Unreal.
the PhD squirrels. They coming.
True.
Oh
my goodness.
Yo, these squirrels are doing parkour, bro.
They're hopping. They are very excited by the concept of injury prevention.
Yes.
It's I gotta say real quick, it's nice doing the podcast outside, man.
It's
just
lovely.
like it's beautiful.
I'm loving it out here.
The birds chirping and oh man,
It's lovely. I hope we get a little birdage on the recorded audio as well. I do hope
some
it comes
birds
through.
chirping. Yeah.
At a minimum, we've had a squirrel intermission, so I think that stands for something.
That is. Anyways, Martina, continue.
Okay, so
Squirrel.
I gotta just disclose a little bit more of our original findings for this to make sense, but what we looked at in our first study, so we call it FROST, Factors Predicting Orthopedic Trauma Volumes. So FROST 1.0, we looked at a lag time. So we wanted to know, okay, you came to Emerge today. What was the weather today? But also, what was the weather yesterday? And does that predict your falling today or your presentation today? What about 2 days ago? If there's ice formation 2 days ago and then a little bit of snow today, does that create a really dangerous situation where you have ice covered by a skiff of snow? It looks like it'll be grippy and then you fall. So we did find that. We found that ice 2 days prior was the most predictive. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very cool.
It is pretty cool. Yeah. We were hyped. Like,
Oh my goodness, it's 2-day ice. Bro.
oh, yeah, ice
just
too.
imagine. Ice 2 dropped today, boys.
Well, and you also gotta figure that, weather and temperature has something to do with how your body reacts to impacts as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Did you guys do any research on that aspect of it?
No. So that is definitely something that comes up, right? Is people that are like maybe arthritis, or you hear your grandparents maybe like complain about their joints in the cold.
I
Right.
have to point this out because I'm your brother. People that are arthritis.
Oh, people, yeah, I'm
People
sorry.
that are arthritis.
I'm tired. People that have arthritis, people are arthritis. This is patient-centered care at its finest. You just make the person the diagnosis. People that are arthritis.
Makes sense,
Yeah, no. People that have arthritis might have like more pain in the winter. Or your grandparents, Or the other thing I think about, and this is a bit tangential, is people with metal in their body. So
Right.
you've had an ankle fracture in the past, you have a plate and some screws in there or something. Does that plate hurt more in the cold? Does that? It's
Well,
fascinating.
you gotta imagine the coefficient of thermal expansion of those metals is a lot different than the bones too. So you're gonna have extra stresses in those joints as the temperature changes, right?
Yeah, that's fascinating, Parker. We
Parker
did
the
not look at
machinist.
that. No, that's actually really cool.
Yes. Dude,
What-
you're gonna
I'm
go
thinking.
back to research now and be like, this podcast changed like everything. Like this is new.
HMHC changed my research career.
HMHC changed my life.
Well, like I said, I've been a long time fan, so. Yeah, so anyways, with our lag time findings, we call it lag time, so, the weather conditions previously, that really highlighted to us, we know, right, if we say ice forms 2 days prior and that's the most dangerous, that means we know 2 days in advance when people are gonna slip and fall. And there's actually a doctor.
That's massive. No, that's huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Huge. Where else in the world are you going to be able to see something like that 2 days in advance and be able to implement action to stop it? Like that's
Yeah.
that kind of time, like 2 days is really big in terms of the amount of prevention you can achieve.
Yeah, totally.
It's
So
very cool.
so how do we prevent it? Like it is not feasible to have my little punk self sitting at a computer getting weather data every day and saying, "Oh, okay, ice formed. Now call everybody in your neighborhood and tell them." No. So
the ice is coming.
the ice is coming. Winter is coming. uh, so an orthopedic surgeon in Edmonton said to my boss and I, like, what about making an index? What about making a slip and fall index like the UV index or the air quality health index, where we say to people, the conditions are dangerous, do ABC to protect yourself. And because we see this lag time, we really do have the ability to do that, but we're not nearly there. And so the index exists in theory, but we think that in order to actually create a product that can be used to warn the public effectively, we're going to need to go the machine learning direction. And we're
Parker just lit up a little bit
Oh,
when
yeah.
you said
Parker
that.
gives
'Cause
the lean in.
I was thinking about that a little bit earlier too. I was like, because you were talking about how you weren't gonna, email everyone like when the temperatures drop and there's ice or whatever. And my mind immediately went like, our technology is good enough now that you could, do multiple
get
checks
GPT-3
for,
on this.
weather
Yeah.
transitions, and then your technology would know if there's
it has-
ice on the ground,
it
and then
has the
send out
potential, yeah.
alerts and alarm, right?
Yeah, a fully automated system is not a far-fetched idea.
No, not at all. And I mean, we have far surpassed that amount of technology that would be required for that now already. So
Yeah.
AI is cool as fuck. Sorry, continue.
So it is really cool, and I think we're very limited. So when we did our study and the work we've done is all traditional statistics, meaning you have to define your variable before you can look at the output, whereas in machine learning you can constantly be adding new variables and seeing how they interact in just a way that traditional stats can't do. And I think that's what we're going to need to do for this to be usable. And we've done a little bit of machine learning. Our data is getting critiqued right now or reviewed to kind of see like what directions we can best work with what we have already and sort of fit it into machine learning. And yeah, so the vision of the index is really that in the winter or in the summer, I guess, but mostly in the winter, because that's when we have those weather conditions that predict trauma, you would be able to go on your computer, open up the Weather Network app, and you could see your risk of slipping and falling. And then furthermore, there's certain patient populations or people in the general public that are at a higher risk of slipping and falling. So we would ideally stratify the index and say if you're in the at-risk population, which just say is over 65, maybe try these. If you're younger, not at risk, you feel really mobile, maybe you don't have to be as extreme. Maybe you don't need to put on your ice cleats. Maybe you just need to exercise a little bit of extra caution when you go outside. And so that's the vision of the index. And just to wrap that up, there is proven interventions. So ice cleats on shoes has been studied and prevents falls. So if we can pair our knowledge of these are the known icy conditions, and this does work. I really think the impact on the healthcare system, because we decrease orthopedic trauma, but furthermore on people's lives. If you're older and you can stay out of the hospital by avoiding hip fracture, like that can seriously change your quality of life for the rest of your life. I don't think people
And reduce the strain on the healthcare system.
yeah, and
which is something that I think a lot of people were made aware of in the last couple of years with, these COVID volumes and how that affected everything down the chain. If there are things we can actively be doing to keep these volumes as low as possible, that is better for everyone. It positively affects taxpayers. It positively affects, the people who are actually in the hospitals doing the work. There's a lot there that this can impact more than just, people above 60.
yeah, of course. And the other thing is, when the hospital is overflowing with patients, orthopedic patients, there's always other patients that are coming in to emerge that need care. And so if we can keep the orthopedic burden down, then maybe those other patient presentations could receive better care. The resources are less strained because we've prevented orthopedic injury. So I really think that if we could successfully implement the index, it would change the lives of Albertans. And I think the reality of the situation is that we are pretty underfunded. Research is really grassroots. Like this research is me, my supervisor, who's an orthopedic surgeon, our statistician, and then really awesome collaborators that have worked with us pretty much for free. And we've had some funding, enough to keep the project going, but really this project started with something that I could do as an 18-year-old, and it's evolved to something that my research group can't do on our own. We're not machine learning experts. We don't know this stuff, and we don't really have the funds to make it happen.
You're at a point where the email to David Spence isn't going to help you, and so you need to be. I mean, I know I'm not in a position to tell you what to do because you know more of this stuff than I do. However,
Give it to me.
I think that same resourcefulness that we spoke about, that same ability to navigate seemingly difficult and unsolvable problems using what you have at hand could maybe not be your way out of this, but you've proven those resourcefulness skills, so use them again.
Yeah.
You're not.
I think you gotta give Elon Musk a little email.
Hey Elon, I do research on weather and orthopedic trauma. I know this isn't quite Tesla version. I don't even know, but hey, consider me.
I know you're a big AI guy, Elon.
Yeah. but all right, Calvin, resourcefulness. Here's the shameless plug. I know there's lots of millionaires right now listening to How Many House Cats, and if this has at all resonated with you, I'm sure there's a way to leave my contact info or something. Reach out. Even if there's some part of you that's like, this is kind of cool, shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you.
We will drop contact information in the description.
Yeah.
Sure,
on
no
this
problem.
One. Right, Parker?
Yes, no problem.
Exactly.
We can do it.
All right. Yeah. So that's that. How are you guys feeling about it?
I'm great. I have a couple more questions for you. Parker, I gotta offer it up again. Do you have
I just want to point out real quick that we have like 60 viewers, so
And all 60 of them are millionaires.
of course,
Why
yes,
are you
100%.
telling me?
Why
Don't.
you underselling the pod?
Massive success. We've talked about this.
My bad. Reverse.
No, it's
60
okay.
is
The-
more
Uno
than
if
reverse.
I'm not mistaken, views are public on YouTube. You can see how many people have watched these. We actually also air on an ultra exclusive network among the global elite. That YouTube views don't indicate that. But this podcast is reaching important people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So important that it's not reflected in the number of views.
Mr. Buffett, I know we spoke last week. You and I had a conversation with Bill there at the Microsoft headquarters, and if you are feeling interested in this, I know you've been dishing out some investments lately. So if you think Miss Martina here is presenting some compelling ideas, they could go public with your help.
Don't feel shy to just shoot me a text there, Warren.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bunch of nerds
Oh,
in this
God damn it.
podcast. All right, all right.
So, Parker, that is what you wanted to add. Do you have
Go
any
ahead.
questions for Martina? No, you want to go ahead. All right. So, I guess this will tie into some degree of what you were just talking about. I have two questions left for you. By the way, this will be the first.
Sure.
Where do you see the future or the maximum potential of this research going? Does it end at the index, or do you see this stemming into other things, or does it really just end with what you were just talking about?
So, the index, the index,
The index.
I think will start in Calgary as a pilot. I think that's where we're best, what's the word I'm looking for? Poised. Yeah, poised to pilot it and kind of collect our preliminary data and see if it's actually effective. And so, you know, let's pitch a perfect world. I think we could expand the index to Canada, to other countries, but also to other specialties. I don't think orthopedic trauma is the only thing that is impacted by weather or by time of year or by something
Totally.
like this. And I think this frame of thought that is how can we put evidence behind things that we sort of know to be true and then use it. I think it's a way of thinking and research that is maybe less common than some of those really technical like medical research questions. And I think this project hopefully at minimum creates some inspiration for other people to say, hey, this also applies to what I do, and I'm going to use it to do something totally different on this basic premise of can we put evidence behind our observations in the world and then use it. And I think that's really cool.
Very nice. Very nice. Good answer. Good answer. So, my one last thing for you. Going into the future, what other kinds of research interest you, and what else would you like to be involved in? Or if you want to pair with that, what are things that you've seen being in this world that you think need to be researched?
Yeah.
I know that's a very on the spot question, and it can be a pretty deep topic. So, surface it if you want. Pass on the question if you don't know.
Oh,
Or
I'm not a
just talk.
passer. I'm
Yeah.
not a passer.
Well, I know. Sometimes that mic pressure can get to you. You know.
Yeah, I'm really feeling the heat here in this seat. Um okay. So I think something that nursing really taught me is the importance of hearing from your target population if what you're doing is effective. And I know that sounds odd, but I think sometimes we get in these
Sounds completely preposterous.
well, yeah.
I'm kidding.
It sounds
I'm
it
kidding.
sounds preposterous that we would need to do it, right? But I think sometimes we get in these silos where it's you think about something that is going to prevent injury and then you forget to ask the people that you're trying to help what they need and what they want. And so what I think would be really interesting is studying the user experience of the index, talking to people, like getting more feedback from the general population. And I think that, how do I say this? I think injury prevention and research that is upstream and related to what people actually want and need is something that really interests me. I would say I'm a pragmatic person. I like things that are applicable, and I really love research in general, and I see my research career focusing on simple things we can do and study to make a big impact. And I really like that aspect of this research. I actually had a research idea the other day, but it's super like not at all this direction, and it's probably going to make the two people I'm sitting with pretty uncomfortable.
It's probably more relevant to the population than every single thing Parker and I have talked about. So, by all means.
Shoot.
Well, it gets
let-
into women's health, so I don't want to skeeve
we
anyone
also
out here.
got into that last episode.
We
so-
did a
Okay.
little bit, didn't
Yeah,
we?
we
Okay.
dipped
Oops.
our toes.
So I can't believe I'm about to get into this, but hey,
for
let's
it.
go. So I was at my doctor the other day, and we were talking about IUDs, and you're familiar with
Yeah.
such devices? Okay, great. Very useful in protecting against unwanted pregnancy.
No babies.
No babies.
Fuck babies, bro.
Whoa,
Absolutely.
we love the baby. I love babies.
We love
Yeah.
babies, but
Yo,
fuck the babies.
easy
bro.
on the wheeze there, guys. I'm not a huge baby
Oh,
fan
right, yeah,
myself.
like I love babies.
There we go. Let's keep it. Let's
Sorry,
keep it
sorry about the
singular here.
foreman's weed.
There we go.
So there's a product like a menstrual cup, which forms like a suction when you're on your period. And just hear me out on this.
Is this the one that sits on the edge of the bathtub?
Oh yeah, you suck.
Word.
Edit that out. Yeah,
It
does.
stays in.
No, it's
No.
exposure
Oh
time.
jeez. Okay, yeah. I'm
you,
sorry.
You took it here.
I'm sorry. Sometimes I clean it in the bathtub. All right. So anyway, they're really awesome because there's a lesser risk of toxic shock syndrome. They're really great. They're an awesome product for women, and I've used a menstrual cup for years, and I like them. But they create a suction. They work by creating a suction. And if you have an IUD and you go to crank out your menstrual cup, it can pull the IUD out with it. And I tried to find an answer, like, is it safe for me to use my menstrual cup when I have an IUD? And the company says, kinda, and there's actually no research on it. And that's something, again, that would be so useful to know. Like, can I use this with my IUD? And why has nobody done it? I don't know. And I'm pretty interested, and I think that sexual health, reproductive health, I'm into it. I think it's important. I think it's important we talk about it in spaces like this, where it's like, yeah,
These are important conversations.
this
to
is
have,
a little weird for me
absolutely.
to talk about my IUD and my menstrual cup with my brother and his friend that I don't really know. But hey, let's do it anyway.
It
So
doesn't need to be a taboo thing.
yeah,
It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like North America is one of the few places on Earth where sex is a no topic, right? Like you go overseas, most places, you go to a dinner party and everyone's talking about all that shit, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So that was just an idea that popped in my head, really, because I was talking about it with someone like 2 days ago, being like, yes, we should study that. I think that would be a cool study. I want to know the answer, so I kind of want to do it. Not exactly sure how I'd recruit patients for that, but maybe I should find someone in med school, find a family doc or an OB that wants to do a little IUD menstrual cup study with me. I guess the problem with that too is we don't really know how many people have an IUD and use a menstrual cup and succeed. We only see the patients, or physicians only see the patients where it doesn't work.
Mhm.
So it would just be interesting.
You're only seeing problematic cases.
Right.
Right.
So it would be interesting to know, because when I talked to my doctor about it, she said there's a few cases she's seen where it hasn't gone well, but her point was she has no idea how many times it has gone well, because you don't even think about it. If you never pulled out your IUD with your menstrual cup, you're probably not fussed, and you're probably not going
Yeah.
to talk to your doctor
it never
about
even
it.
crossed the mind, right?
Yeah. So it would be interesting for sure. How's that for your question? Sorry, can you ask me the question again? I might.
I think that was good. I just asked you, what other kinds of research you'd be interested in getting into, and before you got into that, you essentially talked about, preventative action in public health.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's great because you already have that experience, right? You're not, if you do take that into another realm of medicine, you have kind of relevant skills already, right? You're not going totally fresh into something.
Yeah, and I think a lot of healthcare, as I have seen it in a nursing setting or in a research setting even, is downstream. That's what the hospital is. That's like, once something has gone wrong, okay, now we'll help you. And that's great. That's really interesting, but I think for me, I think health is me never having to encounter you in a hospital, and doing research that can help people not come to the hospital and not get sick or injured in the first place is really, really cool and really powerful. So that's definitely an area I'm interested in and would love to stay in for sure.
I've got a quick question, Martina. Sorry if I'm going off topic
No,
a
let's
little
hear it,
bit.
Parker.
What is your opinion on hospitals and medicine, their effect on the long-term evolution of the human race?
Oh, that's a hard-hitting question. I think about this often.
Me
I-
too. This
Yeah.
is one of my favorite topics.
I also really need to pee. So
Me too.
I'll be back. You guys entertain this conversation for
We're-
a couple, and
or
then
should we take a quick break?
I mean, we can also
Let's
just
take a
do
quick.
that.
Let's take
Let's
a quick
take a
break.
quick break and
Alright.
Let's get an ad
and-
from Rosso Coffee, our
Yeah.
new sponsor.
word Rosso Coffee. Thanks for sponsoring the episode.
Thanks for, fueling this episode, even if there's been pretty minimal
Today's
support.
episode brought to you by Rosso Coffee.
Just give it a taste.
Just give it a
Give it a taste.
All right, we're back. So when we left off, we were talking about we were about to jump into how hospitals and medicine affect the evolution of the human race. So Martina, what do you have to say about that?
All right. So, I don't know much about how medicine, healthcare, hospitals, all that stuff has impacted human evolution specifically, but the first thing that pops into my mind is the change that happens in our society, the evolution of our society as a result of medicine and healthcare. And so we have an aging population. The life expectancy of people has gone way up. And have you ever seen those population triangle things? Have you seen those?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so what they are, and it's kind of hard to explain without a visual, but basically what it is it groups ages. So it'll go like 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and those are the rows up. And then you just cluster the number of people in each age group. And so what we're seeing is we used to have this very kind of pyramid-shaped triangle, right, where there's more younger people, less older people, something kind of like that, right? But
like
now,
like a linear decline in population. and
yeah,
age.
I mean, maybe there's less in a certain age group depending on when you sample, but generally less people in their late 90s, and more people in their 30s. We still have people in their 30s, but now we have more people in their 80s, 90s, maybe even 70s than we did, say, 50 years ago. And so instead of seeing this triangle, we see more of a line straight up.
Trapezoid,
Yeah.
a rectangular.
a rhombus.
I was going to say rectangle, but hey.
A rhombus. What? I don't remember what is a rhombus.
I think actually rhombus is incorrect. I think rhombus is
Isn't it like the two?
it's like the tilted square where it's like
Right.
a rectangle, but the two sides are like a parallelogram.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I thought trapezoid was like the two.
I think trapezoid is a pyramid without the top.
Right.
with the
okay.
top
yes.
cut off.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
So we're talking about shapes right now.
The
All right,
evolution of
sorry.
the
Back.
human
I'm
into
going to
it.
be no good on that. Not a geometry girl at all. So, anyway,
We're seeing a change in the number of people that are alive at an older age.
yeah, and I think we have, or not we, but I think generally the view in medicine, and this is going to get so controversial, but I think the view typically has been, at least in Western society, is like life is good. If we can cure this disease, we should. If we can keep you alive longer, we should. And I feel, based on some of my experiences in nursing and also just my general beliefs on what it means to live, I think sometimes we sort of lose sight of the goal of creating a life that is long enough, but happy and full until the end, at the expense of staying alive for as long as possible. And I really believe that the foreman's we again, but I think it's important for people in general to think about, like, what do I want the end of my life to look like? And just because I can treat this disease, just because I can choose to try to live longer at 85, should I do that? And will I be happy with how my life looks when that happens? And as a healthcare provider, like, how do you advise patients to make decisions that are best for their quality of life rather than staying alive for longer. And I read a really, really awesome book about this. It's called Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. I'm butchering the name, but really fascinating book, and talks about how different cultures have different views of death and dying, and how typically our society, our Western society, is terrified of death, and it's like death is awful and we don't talk about it. And I really think that as we age more, as there are more options to prolong life, it's also important to think about, I'm gonna die one day, and that is pretty much the only guarantee in life. Like, you're gonna die one day, and making sure that that death is dignified and as much on your own terms as possible. I think just becomes really important with our aging population. But other cultures have different ways of approaching how they treat older people. We have assisted living, long term care, and those can be great options. But also, the book Being Mortal talks about this a lot. Talks about how we put people in these like long-term care facilities or assisted living, and that kind of, for a lot of people, isn't a great option. It can be lonely, it can be really isolating, and there's a lot of people, I think about my grandparents, for example, that are like, I will not go to long-term care or assisted living. And so then that means we have older people who are now being taken care of by their kids. And so how does that impact, say, you're in your mid 40s, you have a couple kids, and your parents are aging, and suddenly you're trying to manage your life and your aging parents. And I think we see that way more now than we used to, because we can prolong life. And I think in some cases that's great. Like, you get a diagnosis at 70, it's treatable, you go through a rough few months, and then you return to your quality of life. And I love that. I love that that's an option. But sometimes you don't. And I think just the need for our society to evolve to a point where we focus on quality of life and what does the person want versus, yes, we have this cure, let's use it. Yeah. So that's my take. In terms of actual physical evolution, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Parker? I'm interested.
Give me a second to organize my thoughts.
Yes. Take your minute.
Formulate. How's your beer, Martina?
It's good.
You like it? Parker has a...
So,
go ahead.
yeah. So I guess basically my main, thought process on that is that, as we use more medicine and we cure more things, like, we are not becoming a stronger species, because, like, obviously I don't want anybody to die, but, before the development of modern medicine and healthcare, if somebody got sick with, pneumonia or a disease or something like that, they would die. And not to say that the weak should die, but when somebody gets sick and dies early age, that definitely they're not the strongest out of us, right?
I mean, that's how
they don't
nature
have the
works.
strongest
Yeah.
immune system, right? And so those people dying off early, strengthens our species. And I it's definitely a controversial topic, but it's also, just kind of the case. So I think with modern medicine, as great as it is, and, I'm not the healthiest person either. I've been to the hospital a few times in my life, and got my life saved, right? But yeah, that's definitely like, I'm going to spread my genes, have children hopefully one day, and my children will, be weaker than some of the other children. And that's just because I've been treated with modern medicine when I would have died otherwise.
Yeah, so I'm going to push you a little bit on that, because I think you have a point, but also I think a little bit like, who cares? I mean, the population of the
I
earth
agree.
is certainly something to consider, and we know that the human race is expanding at a rate that our earth cannot sustain, and that just is what it is. But on the other hand, if we have modern medicine, great. Like people with like diabetes used to be a death sentence, and now you can live a long, happy life with diabetes. And who cares if your kids have diabetes? Yeah, it's gonna kind of suck, but also you there's treatments that exist so you can have a long, happy, full life with diabetes. And so, as much as maybe if we were in a raw environment without
Right.
modern medicine, then
Yeah.
you would be weaker. But
That's the main counter argument, right? Is that modern medicine isn't going anywhere anytime soon, right? So all these, if I, walked into the forest and was nowhere near civilization, like that's not a thing anymore, right? Like,
well, it could be if you wanted it to be.
well,
but,
yeah, I mean, but
but
I'm
are you
just saying,
gonna?
not having access to a hospital, like, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that.
No, I got you. I
Word.
got you. It's not going to be feasible. Like
Yeah.
most of the population isn't trying to live away from modern medicine, and that's I think that's good. But also, I hear what you're saying in the sense that I do think we sort of toe a line where do we intervene too early? Instead of giving the body the chance to heal and recover on its own, we jump in with a pharmacological treatment or surgery or something like that. And I
the
think
kitchen sink, as Mr. Rogan would word it.
explain. I'm not familiar.
This is just there was a lot of controversy around our friend Joe, a fellow podcaster, who there was some things he said about his treatment when he got COVID, and he referred to his treatment as throwing the whole kitchen sink at his illness, that just being a metaphor for a very wide variety of treatments, it being ivermectin and different vitamins and minerals and all of that. That's what he referred to as the kitchen sink. So a wide variety of treatments.
Yeah, I think that presents something interesting too, because when COVID hit, we didn't know how to treat it or how to manage it. So it very much was,
Give it the kitchen sink.
trial by error. Like, oh, that one didn't work. Okay, let's try that one. And
you just can't do that when you have an audience of that many people, and then you voice potentially dangerous information that, even though he never touted it as this is what you should be doing, a lot of people did take it.
oh,
that
I'm
way,
not
right?
condoning that. I just think that it probably was a little bit more chaotic than treating something that we have had around and been used to treating for a long time. And I think, I guess that's part of figuring out what the right treatment is. And that was a challenge that we saw in COVID, was like, how do we actually treat this? What do we do? And I think that's, again, for healthcare providers, it's really hard to know, like, how long do I try this new thing that's not working? Will it start to work at one point? Is there a better alternative? Why are we switching? And we see that a lot, management of heart failure. You try different things at different times, and thankfully there's protocols that exist for that now, because we know kind of what works at different stages, and yeah, we just have more treatment algorithms, I guess, but it is always challenging in medicine, and in choosing a treatment plan is like, what is actually going to work? How long do we stick this out before we jump to something more extreme, or before we say, this isn't going to work, you're in a palliative situation, let's kind of back off and preserve quality of life. So yeah, just a bit of a ramble there, but
Can you define palliative for the audience, please?
yeah, palliative just meaning end of life. So I think an example lots of people may be familiar with is kind of the stereotype, I guess, is someone who has pretty late stage cancer. They've tried chemotherapy, radiation, mainstream cancer treatments, and they haven't worked, and sort of make a decision.
Things are not looking up.
Yeah, and they make a decision to stop treatment because you're sort of at the point of diminishing returns, and it becomes, I want to be at peace, I want to spend time with my family, I want to be comfortable, and I'm not so concerned about eradicating this tumor, because we're sort of past that point, right? And that ties all the way back to my comment about the need for societal evolution, and sort of when do we draw the line, and how do we decide it's time to stop? A very fascinating question, and I think really interesting, and everyone has a different threshold, right? Some people will say, I want to do everything until the very end, and some people are like, no, I want to go live on an island for the next 6 months, and be as it may, this is where we are. And I think it's important for people to think about that, like people our age to think about that, because you never know what can happen, right? And if you don't think about it, then someday you're 85 and you're like, oh crap, I'm gonna die. Oh gosh, I'm not ready for this at all. I haven't thought about this at all. So yeah.
All right, Martina, hypothetical. You have a doctor's appointment, a checkup tomorrow. You receive a terminal diagnosis. You have 6 months to live. What's your move?
Terminal.
Yes, 100% you're dead in 6 months.
No treatment.
No.
For the sake of the hypothetical, no. 100% terminal.
Look at her just going into nursing. Oh, there has to be some kind of treatment.
Yeah,
Bro,
or
just take the question, dude.
No,
for
no,
the
no, I'm
sake
just
of the
making-
hypothetical,
Already, Doc.
death.
Already,
Hey.
Doc. Let's just enjoy ourselves here.
It informs my response, all right? I think I have some money saved up. I have like a line of credit for med school. I think I take the money and go see as
Hang
much.
on, this gets passed on to your family. Debt is no. I'm stepping in already. I
Calvin,
don't agree
Calvin's
with this.
like, I'm taking this. Okay,
I don't
fine.
agree with this. I take
Okay.
on this debt when you
Okay, here.
take
Okay,
it
fine.
on and die.
Fine. I'll
so.
pay off my debt.
Alright.
Probably I won't. But then anyway, use the money that I have and see the freaking world. There's so many places I want to go, so many different types of people I've never met. There's such a wide heckin' world out there, and I have not scratched the surface of it, and I want to. So get on the travel bus, go skydiving, do all the crazy stuff, and bring my family with me. Talk to my friends, have really deep connections, and try to live out my days to the fullest until the point where I can't anymore. And when I can't, I want to find a little remote island somewhere. I want to bring my cat with me. I want to get hugs from my mom, and I want to die.
That's fair.
Calvin, do you have a perspective on that?
6 months. 6 months to live. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I'm gonna go, somewhat along the lines of Martina in terms of, seeing different places, and getting some experience for the world. I would like to do, some rare things, that I've always wanted to do. Like go drive a supercar around a track in Las Vegas. Maybe also check out some of the other Vegas attractions while I'm there.
Yeah, life experiences.
Yeah, and I think just pack as many things in as possible. I think I would definitely put a focus on fine dining. Food is amazing, and I think everyone can relate to that to some degree.
Love food.
And the opportunities I get on my budget to eat really high quality food are just not that high. And whenever I have it, I'm like, oh wow, this is amazing. So I would definitely do like a global Michelin star kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'd be going around checking it all out.
Man's gotta eat, man. I'll
Man's
say it
gotta-
again.
Man's gotta eat.
Man's gotta eat. No, I think that would be the direction I would take it. I would definitely like to ride in a tank. I think that would be really cool. I would also like to play with the most realistic version of a lightsaber that we've made to date. Some of these things, that I gotta knock them off. I gotta check some of it out. And I think I would also probably get a puppy.
Yeah, oh, me too.
Yeah.
I would go to a lot of concerts. Now you're making me think. I'd go to a lot of concerts, and I think I'd actually write a book. I'm fascinated by death, dying, and end of life care. Something about it pulls me in, and if I had that experience, I'd be like, hey, I'm 23 and I'm about to die. Let's document it. Let's tell the story of what I did in my 6 months.
This I approve because I will take the profits.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You can be a co-author.
Okay.
You can do the edits.
I'll do the
after I'm
forward
dead.
as well. The forward. Yo, this is my sister. She low-key is gonna be done in like 8 weeks.
Complete toast in T
Just-
minus
just
3.
just an absolute goner. So
This book is a collection of the chaos that was her last 6 months.
so Parker, I'm dying to know, what would you do with a terminal illness that you were diagnosed with tomorrow?
So it's very much the same thing. I feel like most people have the same, response to that question, which is just gather as many, fruitful life experiences as you can before, you get kicked off the ship, right? Another interesting question is, say you're gonna die tomorrow. So you've lived your last 6 months to the fullest. Would you want to die of your illness, or would you choose to go out a way of your choosing?
Of your own hand, pull a Thomas
Are
Shelby.
we thinking like medical assistance in dying, or
like jump out of a plane without a parachute? Like along those, like
There-
you get
there
to
would
choose.
be, like, some epic.
You get to choose how it goes, but
Yeah.
the one thing for sure is that you are going to die that day.
Yeah. You
So
know,
there's
once you go to bed, you
like,
don't
oh,
wake
is
up
this a
kind of
bad
thing.
idea? Like, you are going to die today.
Yeah.
So do you choose how you're gonna go out, or do you just let the world take you, natural causes?
I think my ego would prevent natural causes from taking me.
Word. I'm in charge of this fucking shit.
Yeah.
this is Calvin's life and he's gonna Calvin it?
Yeah.
I actually think I would wrap myself around a tree going 320 kilometers an hour on a very fast motorcycle.
Word. I thought of that one too. That's
Yeah,
a good one.
I think that would be sick. Just drop knee around every corner, just absolutely huck, and then hit a dead end and know the dead end is there, and it
Just fully commit.
yeah.
Do you think you'd pussy out?
I was just gonna say,
Like that's like a.
I don't know if I have the
Yeah.
balls to take my
Yeah.
own life. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you're really ripping towards that brick wall. Do you think you fucking hit the brakes in an attempt to?
What if I
don't
live?
Think, I
Yeah.
don't think with 6 months of preparation for such an event that would happen. I mean, obviously there would be strong emotions. I actually
Yeah.
wouldn't know how to replicate that
Yeah.
because it's almost such a crazy hypothetical of personal experience that it's hard to put yourself.
Yeah.
And it's hard to think ahead of the way you might be feeling
Definitely.
under such circumstances. But I do think with 6 months of living your life and doing the things you need to do, I mean, the 6 months would go by
Yeah.
like super quick. But yeah, I think you'd have time to prepare.
So this conversation is actually making me think of someone I found on Instagram rather haphazardly, but she was a Olympic runner and was diagnosed with cancer at a really young age. Like she was running track and field in college and got a pretty scary cancer diagnosis.
Was
and
she a Olympic pre or post diagnosis?
Post.
Post, okay.
Yeah, so she competed and made the active choice to compete as an Olympian throughout her cancer journey. And her husband is a doctor, and he shared a lot about what it was like for them to live together, especially near the end of her life. And they said they just sort of ended up 6 weeks at a time, and they would say, okay, we have these 6 weeks between scans, we're going to go live and do what we want to do in these 6 weeks. And for them that was running, exploring, and he talks about the way that it actually was awful but changed their lives for the better, because adopting that mentality that I'm not permanent, this will end one day, forced them, for lack of a better expression, like off the couch into the world. And I think that actually lots of people, even healthy people, can benefit from, like, hey, I don't have forever. So how do I want to spend my time? My time is finite. What do I want to do with it? And I think it's interesting, especially in cases like that where we've seen people make the choice to really live and commit to that. And for her husband, who wasn't dying, he sort of got into that journey alongside her and had to deal with her death and her terminal diagnosis. But he also was living to that like fullest extent with his partner and just like soaking up every minute of life with her. And I think it's really cool, and they were and are really beautiful people as a result. So that's just a little side. The athlete is Gabe Grunwald, if anyone's interested in looking her up. Really cool story, really cool person. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
All right. So I've got a couple things that I've prepared beforehand. We can get into the typical absurdity of the hypotheticals, or I do have. I previewed this question with you yesterday. I do have a slightly deeper question. Would we like to end on a deep note, or would we like to end on typical HMHC style question?
Let's get some HMHC up in here.
Okay. All right. So I have prepared a house cat question for you guys, and this one will definitely need a little bit of thinking. There is a group of these deadly house cats, of which we have aforementioned many times.
Lloyd and Company.
Yes. Lloyd is
That's our house
once
cat.
again the house cat. There are a large group of these. The number starting at 50, and their intention is to kill you and the being that you are with. You have a choice of one living thing, not human, any animal that can be on your team to help you defend against these house cats. What animal do you choose to help you defeat the army of 50 house cats?
Does it have to be a creature that exists in our natural world, or can I do like a fantasy type creature? Like, can I fly out of there on a dragon?
I think let's stay within the realm of reality for now. Because we could all just pick Smog from The Hobbit and be completely fine. So let's make this the challenge that it's meant to be.
A pterodactyl is kind of
That's
on
out.
the
That's
fine
out.
line.
It's on the edge. It's on the edge.
We're gonna kick it out though, eh?
Yeah,
No,
I would
Nothing.
I would
Something
say,
current.
Yeah.
Word.
Yeah.
That's a good question,
And
Calvin.
it must be singular.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Singular, one being,
Yes.
one
Along with you.
creature.
Yes.
Word.
Also unarmed. It cannot be sharks with lasers.
Oh, those don't exist in the natural world?
Yeah, they do. Austin Powers.
Yes.
Any limitations on location?
Oh, on location. That does actually.
Are you within a cage, so to speak, or
No, you're in a field.
You're in a
There's
field.
nowhere to hide.
'Kay.
Yeah.
for miles and miles?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing, no obstacles, just
No.
flat
This
ground.
is flat generated.
This
world
is super
right here.
flat.
Yeah, this is super flat. Precisely. Precisely, Parker.
No villages.
No villages, but mob spawning. So, who wants to go first? We're just thinking.
That's a really tough question,
It is,
man.
it
like
is, it is.
I don't want to like there's gonna be a lot of dead air, right? If we just chill and think about it. But
Yeah.
man, like I don't even know where to go. I haven't even begun my thought process yet. So
I've been thinking about this. So would you guys?
Well, I've
like
got a
me to
thought
start, or do
process
you wanna-
going. I've got a thought
all right,
process.
Martina, let's
Let's
hear
hear it.
Okay, so I'm thinking about the 50 cats, right? These terror-filled beasts. How does one get away from a cat? Well, first thought, which inspired the dragon, is you got to get high, not from a bomb.
yeah, yeah, dude.
Yeah, get high. Like high up, right? Because you get away from the cats and birds. My cat sits and watches birds all
Achieve
day.
elevation.
Yeah, but if you achieve elevation up a tree, I think you're done. Like I think these cats are
Super
just gonna
flat.
rip up.
It's super flat. There are no trees.
Yeah. So that's a no-go. So you try and run away
No
from
one ever teach you super flat?
No. So
You were not a Minecraft kid.
I was not. No.
What a shame.
The only video game I played was Nintendogs.
And you
That's
were
a good game.
and
I played that.
You were also on the Dragon Vale grind. You
Oh.
dropped some credit card money on Dragon Vale way back in the day.
iTunes gift cards.
Yeah.
Also
Yeah.
Kingdom Rush.
But real shit, I fucking rapped Nintendogs, bro. That game had a fucking gnarly ending, dude. Okay. Anyway.
So now, all right. There's no trees. We got to get away from the cats. So we try to run. What's fast? A cheetah? You just jump on the cheetah. Well,
Cheetah cannot carry a human even of your size.
okay.
It can't?
What about a really-
Cheetahs,
what about a-
cheetahs are not that big.
What about a tiger or something? Like what can sprint me away? I think that's a no-go. So now I'm at what's the
You're looking for speed. Well, ostriches are fast and you can ride ostriches.
Okay, but still, I don't think we're gonna tire out these cats because cats can go forever. So now I'm thinking we need a thick-skinned critter that is also because the cats can't claw their way up. I want to get on this big thing. Like I'm thinking hippo or elephant here, that I can get up. The cats can't scale it, and then meanwhile this thing can just kind of get mad and stomp around and then just stomp them out one by one. So I'm going hippo or elephant here. I haven't decided which one, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Is grizzly bear out of the question for you?
Yeah, my first thought was grizzly bear.
'Cause they're quick.
Yeah.
They real quick. Also, just before we move on too far from the cheetah thing, an adult cheetah weighs 75 to 140 pounds.
Word.
So
Yeah, they're gonna have a tough time.
You'd be basically
Yeah.
doubling its weight, which
Yeah.
would greatly decrease
Mhm.
Its speed.
Yeah.
If it could carry it at all.
Yeah.
Cheetah's
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
But that was the first fast thing I thought of. So grizzly bear. I don't know why that didn't cross my mind. I think,
Because grizzly bears are usually trying to kill you.
yeah, but also I feel like they might get impacted by the cats. You know, like
A
the
grizzly
cats
bear's
jump
gotta
on
be
and-
quicker than a cat, right?
I would think so. I mean, their sprint speed is crazy.
and
They're
you
like
could probably
45
saddle it, right?
kilometers
You
an
just
hour.
hop on its back,
Mhm.
you know?
And
they-
just run?
But they have such thick hair that I don't think a cat really has any method of getting through unless they
Yeah.
go for the eyes or ears, which once again brings into the intelligence of the cats. But
Mhm.
I think we have established a standard of these cats have murderous instincts. But the intelligence of a typical
Mhm.
cat. So it's not like they're gonna know instantaneously that if they're gonna kill the human, they got to get the eyes of the grizzly bear first.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
So we're not in a cage though, right? Like we can run out of the field, because I think the only thing is like
Super flat.
I don't know what that is.
It means there's just a flat plain with no
Yeah, you're in the
trees.
desert. No mountains, no nothing.
I like grizzly bear. Cal, is that where you landed?
Grizzly bear? No, actually.
So my only thought with grizzly bear is if you don't if you're not on the back of that grizzly bear and you got like a head start off those cats, like their only goal is to kill the human, right? They don't have to kill the grizzly bear. I think those cats would have no problem climbing up that grizzly bear and taking you out, right?
Mhm.
So unless you had that like head start and you were on and you were fucking off, then the grizzly bear isn't an option, right? And then also you got to think about the endurance of both a grizzly bear and a house cat. Who wins the endurance
Mhm.
race,
Mhm.
right? Like a grizzly bear might be faster, even though I guess I'm not even sure about that. But if a grizzly bear doesn't have the same endurance as the cats, it's useless.
That's why I
Well,
kind of went the
maybe
like
maybe
defense
not.
route with like a big chunky boy that can like get in the way. I can kind of be on the other side. They can. I don't know.
Well,
Endurance really crossed my mind at the start there too.
I
Yeah.
mean, even if the bear does get outrun by the cats, you may disadvantage the cats enough to start catching some fatalities. Yeah,
They're
you
fatigued.
Yeah, they could be.
Word.
They could be worn down by the time that they do reach you from the back of whatever it is you're riding on that succumbs to its eventual fatigue.
All right.
Depends how intelligent the cats are, right? You
Yeah.
get like a layer. You said 50 cats, yeah?
Yeah.
So you got a layer of 20 cats, and the other 30 cats are riding on top of the cat carpet, saving their endurance.
True.
And
They're in layers.
Yeah, those bottom 20 cats get worn the fuck out. They
Yeah.
switch.
Right. Okay.
And you know
Mhm.
they're
Yeah,
they
yeah,
just
yeah.
got an infinite loop
Yeah.
going.
Oh,
Some smart
I hear it.
cats.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, Cal, you had more time to think about this. I'm interested in your
Yeah,
answer.
let's hear it, man.
You guys ready for some 4D chess?
Yes.
An alpha male tomcat.
Oh, word.
Yeah, because he has pure animalistic dominance, enough to override the drive of the cats that are there to kill you, because that big tomcat stands in their face and every part of their genetic code and their consciousness goes, I must submit to this thing. And so I have one mega tomcat that is just an absolute chungus, and he asserts himself on those cats that are trying to kill. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever seen what happens when like an alpha lion, a male lion, comes into a pack of other lions. They roll on their bellies like instantaneously. They're like terrified right off the bat. So it does kind of take a bit of an assumption that house cats would behave in a similar manner to an alpha cat. That is the one kind of assumption that I make here. If you are to discredit that and say that that's not a fair assumption that can be made, I would have to go with an elephant. Purely because they can't do anything to the elephant. The elephant has a very strong trunk, which can act like a windshield wiper and just mush cats like bugs on the ground. It can just lay that thing down and just sweep them into the dirt. But also, you're elevated enough that every cat that is approaching you now has to come from one of four positions instead of 360 degrees around you. So you do have a tactical advantage on the cats as well. So you have elevation, you have a defense mechanism built into the elephant, and then you also have those fewer angles of attack. So
That's good. That's good thinking.
Those are my answers.
So,
because I still think when you're riding that grizzly bear, if the grizzly bear doesn't outrun those cats, they can grab onto your legs from ground level, and then they're onto you. And then they can form a chain, and they can make like a bridge and then start running up each other's backs, and it's problematic.
so the one thing I'm thinking about here with the alpha cat is like, even if all of the cats submit, doesn't the alpha want to breed? Like, it's 1 in 50, right?
Oh yeah, it adds salt to the wound for sure. They all leave us. They don't go for the attack, and then the alpha male proceeds to breed every last one of them.
But
Yo, the sun is hitting the phone. Let me check the footage.
All right, Parker.
so while Parker does that, though, I'm just getting hung up, right? Because the alpha wants to breed. So yeah, everyone's gonna submit to the alpha at the start, but then once the alpha finds its honey and gets doing the nasty over somewhere, aren't the other cats just going to proceed with their life and go back to killing you? Like, I think
mean,
you get a buffer.
Maybe so, but if the grizzly bear doesn't try and kill you, I also think it's fair to say that the alpha doesn't desire to mate.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you that for sure. Alpha cat is a good move. I was thinking a dog even, like, if cats just hate dogs.
I've seen cats like beat up dogs that are way bigger than them.
Yeah, no, dog's not good, but like that direction, like what's something you can bring in that's just gonna make all the cats fold? And I like alpha cat for that reason.
I think alpha cat is a great defense overall, like 10 out of 10.
Great creative thinking, Calvin.
Thank you. Like I said, 4D chess.
Man's a problem solver at heart.
Parker, we're over here playing checkers. Calvin's playing 4D chess.
I'm not even playing chess at this point. We've gone interdimensional with this.
Meta.
Calvin
is in the astral planes, along with the 50 house cats.
You guys think that was a good one?
Yeah,
that was a good one.
That's a good house.
All right, I'm ready for the next one.
You're ready for another.
So I guess we're gonna finish off this podcast with your question of the day. Yeah.
With my question of the day, I mean, we are missing one key thing here, and I am keeping an eye on the time. I know where we're at. Martina, can you give me a compressed version of how many house cats do you think you could take on with your bare hands if they were trying to kill you, and why?
Word, good question.
I think 1 to 2. I think once a cat has managed to scale up to my face, it's absolutely over. And I don't think there's any protective equipment I can wear to sort of fend off these cats. The only thing that makes me say 2, not just 1, is maybe if there's 1, I can use my other limb to get it off and kind of keep it away from me. But I think once both my arms have succumbed to the cat, it's game over.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's kind of, I mean, my answer sits a little bit higher because I do believe I could kill at least 1 cat, if they were trying to kill me. But yeah, I think that's a solid answer. I think it's rationalized. Humans have thin skin as well.
So what if you were wearing like full knight armor?
Oh, impervious to cat, bro.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
How so?
Well,
explain the mechanics of it.
Well, because those pieces of armor were at one point, when you were dealing with a hand-to-hand combat. So, at first you had chainmail, which was very good with blades, but then arrows came into play, and that just went straight through chainmail, and so you needed to bulk up. And ultimately, you have one weak spot, and those are like the back sides of your joints, right? Because you can't be fully covered. You still need to move. But essentially, your entire front side
They just lay
is-
down on the ground, though.
is good, right? And so, yeah, you can just lay down, and these cats, they just can't. They can't do anything to you. They don't have the intelligence to start trying pulling things off of your armor.
I mean, perhaps.
I don't know. I mean, maybe if you gave them, like 2,000 theoretical attempts, you let them, learn. You gave them a little bit of collective AI and let them, figure out their errors, then maybe, but I don't think.
I
on
think
the
you're
baseline.
underestimating the true satanic nature that lies in every house cat.
I don't think a cat in a house has ever seen knight's armor, so I think cats are getting lost in the sauce on that.
Yeah,
one.
I'm not sure a cat can get through quarter-inch plate steel.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, it's. I know you are doing your best to side with the cats on this one, but I just don't see.
I'm
it
trying to
happening
stand
with
up
the
for the
knights-
little buddies. They're
knights armor.
smarter than they may appear, but yeah, the armor's probably going to take the cat.
You
want to
probably
charge.
wouldn't end up completely like unscathed in that situation.
Mhm.
I feel, those cats would probably, fuck something up, but well, I mean,
Yeah.
then again, I don't know.
Mhm.
Knight's armor. That's a tough one.
It's very tough.
I'm not familiar with knight's armor,
it's,
really.
It's full frontal coverage. I
Yeah.
mean, it's depending, what era you come from. But
Yeah.
if you are taking from when hand to hand combat and arrows were prevalent, then yeah, you're getting basically full plate steel coverage on your front and really no receptacles large enough for a cat to fit any appendages into. So I have one final question, and this is a little it's a little different than these house cat style questions, but I do think it's a very interesting conversation to have, and I think everyone has different bits of information to add to this. It is, do you believe, and to what extent do you believe that your reality is akin to the reality that others experience? Now, before you answer this question, I would like to give you our definition on reality. Now, what was defined for... What are you peeking at, bro?
Nothing.
Oh, stop looking at my screen.
Just trying to prep for these questions.
Our definition of reality comes in as the state or quality of having existence or substance. So it is the state or quality of what you perceive. So what do you think you share with other people? What do you think differs from other people?
I've had a lot of airtime on this podcast, so I'm gonna pass it over to Parker first. But if Parker needs some time to gather his thoughts, like I do, can we maybe get a bit of an intro from you, Cal? What are your thoughts?
Parker, do you want to share?
I can jump in a little bit. So
I know you think about these things when
yeah,
we're not podcasting.
this is
so-
definitely a topic that goes through my mind on a regular basis.
Nerd.
So, yeah, the question was, how close is your model of reality to other people's?
Yes.
Correct.
Similarities
Um,
and differences,
right.
etc.
So, I think for sure there's a lot of differences between people's perceptions of reality, right, and how they understand the world. Because childhood and development, right, like everything has been learned, if not like genetic, right, but it can be argued that genetics are just things we've learned
just
over the
learnings as well,
grander
yes.
scale of time, right?
I feel like you and I have very similar information sources. That's immediately what my brain went to.
Yeah. So yeah, like I don't know, the way you perceive things is it's definitely fragile, and yeah, I think to say that the way I perceive things is the way anybody else perceives things is ludicrous. Honestly, I don't think there's many similarities at all. I think almost everybody has a very unique way of perceiving the world, but the one thing we all have in common is that the way we perceive the world allows us to function within it.
Right.
And I think that might be one of the very few similarities we share in the way we perceive everything. I think that's about all I got to say
Okay.
about that, honestly.
All right. Martina, if you're ready, go ahead, or I can lay into this as well.
I want a little more time to form a thesis
Okay.
statement.
Word.
Hit it.
Nerd.
Calvin,
Yeah.
you got something for us?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, I've talked about this with a lot of people, you know, in terms of like basic senses. When I see the color green, we agree that it's green, but if, you know, my eyes were to be attached to your brain, you know, would you be seeing the same thing, or would you be going, oh, is this actually is what I would call red, or would you be going, this is something I've never seen before in my life, and this is a crazy experience because I'm seeing a new color, which I have no idea what that would really be like. So I think that I think the likelihood of us experiencing basic senses as different is probably pretty high. I think there's a good chance that we have deferral in the way we sense things. However, I would say there are commonalities beyond the five senses. So I would think that a lot of humans experience pain in a similar way, whether that's physical or emotional. I think humans experience grief in a very similar way. I mean, everyone tends to handle that slightly differently, and that ties into their, you know, the way they were raised and their experiences. But I think that core emotion of you have lost someone who is very close to you, I think that is something that is shareable across a lot of, you know, a very wide range of the population. Um, I would also argue that hunger is probably experienced in a similar way, and I would also argue that joy and happiness are experienced in a similar way as well. So I think once you go beyond those initial five senses of your perception of reality, you know, just raw information, once you move beyond that and think of the processing of that perception, I think the processing and the way that feels for humans can be a very relatable experience.
Mhm.
So the neighbor is here. He's gone
The
back
neighbor
inside
has, started blasting music,
So
and very kindly
he's-
came and shut the door.
What a guy.
Good man.
Be
So that's-
respectful.
That's
man.
that's what I would say. You know, I see for differences and commonalities. I mean, it's a long list. You know, once you start going into emotions, I think a good summative way to say that is our five senses may greatly differ, but beyond that, I think humans share a lot in terms of the way we feel.
Psychology, right?
Yeah.
Once
A
you-
shared human experience.
Yeah.
Once you get deep into psychology and the life experience, that makes sense. There are a lot of commonalities. Like if you talk about, a breakup with somebody,
Mhm.
like it's very easy to be like, oh yeah, I know exactly how
Yeah,
it
like,
feels,
oh, I've
right?
been there, bro.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, we all have the same equipment, right? Like we all have the same anatomy. We've all got eyeballs with the same
No.
rods and cones, right? All of our equipment works.
That's a
in the
that's
same
a bit of a generalization, but most of the population
Fair.
shares
Yeah,
these
okay,
things.
fair.
Yeah.
But the way our brain recognizes those, I think, is what differs the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with you.
So,
I'm dying to
Martina,
jump in now.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
hear it.
We're ready.
So
And
this
these will be, I believe, final remarks for the podcast.
Okay.
So
Yes.
go out with a bang.
Okay, so in my second year of university, I wrote a review of sorts on the evolution of facial expressions. And something I found really, really fascinating was that blind Olympic athletes who have won medals make the same victory face as Olympic athletes who have observed other people's victory. They maybe have learned how to make that face or when to make that face, make the same face as people who've never seen anybody else make it. And that kind of goes all the way back to what you said at the start, Parker, with genetics being that sort of multi-generational learning, but I think that facial expression kind of ties into what Calvin was saying, where there is some emotional similarities when you achieve something great, that feeling, and even like down to the way it's displayed in your body, the face that you make is shared at least to some extent. Where I and Calvin really kind of took the words out of my mouth when he was talking about how emotions are shared between people. um but the one thing I would say is the way the emotion might be the same, but the way you process it and work through it and know how to manage it, I think, is greatly influenced by your reality and what you think you need to do with that emotion, how you feel you should respond. So even though you might be, experiencing sadness after a breakup, one person is like, you know, getting a little too drunk on the weekends, and someone else is running ultra marathons, and someone else is writing poetry. And I think that comes down to like how we value expressing our emotions, what we do to cope, what we perceive as productive or not productive. And I'm with you both on the five senses thing, where reality is informed, I guess, by our equipment. I think that my opinion of what reality on Earth is that there's things that are real that we cannot observe, and I think the
That is a whole other conversation.
yeah, but I think again, like, perception of reality comes down to how much you believe that what you're seeing right now is true and is real and is the only thing, versus like, yeah,
Parker and I have actually talked about this a little bit on the podcast before.
yeah, and like, yeah, there's something else there, right? And I guess to come in with a little bit of a tangent, and I guess maybe I'll leave it here, but I really think that outside of emotion, I think most people crave connection and feeling accepted, and maybe not being able to be their true selves, but connectedness, support. I think, having community, no matter what that looks like for you, can really change your reality. And I kind of think that's a basic human need, or something that we all share
100%.
with different realities. Is like, we could totally see the world in a different way, um, and still want to share that sense of community, belonging. Um, and I guess, back to the healthcare thing, that's something I've seen a lot in people, and resilient people, is if they can find connection, they can power through. And some of the saddest things I've seen are where people are just feel, for whatever reason, that they are truly alone. And I think that even that sense of loneliness is so informed by your reality. Some people can be quite solitary but feel really connected to something greater than themselves. Maybe that's religion, or something that they feel connected to. I think we crave purpose and connection, and I think how we find that is pretty informed by our reality and what we perceive to be important. So, yeah.
What a beautiful note to end on.
There we go. Yeah.
Great conclusion.
That was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. So thank
too.
you so much for joining us.
Thanks for coming on, Martina.
Yeah, thanks. Real quick, Calvin made me watch a really bad movie last night called Spiderhead.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
dude.
Yes,
Spiderhead is straight garbage.
And I would just like to say
brutal.
that was one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Yep.
Cool topic.
Yep.
Some cool ideas in there, but man,
Horrible execution.
Horrible execution.
So bad. And it's tricky because the first half hour, it tricks you into thinking it's good.
You think?
That's definitely what happened.
The first
to
half
me.
hour, I was
Yeah.
like, this movie fucking slaps, bro.
Yeah.
And like, dude,
There's some cool
like you
scenes.
said, like an hour in, I'm like, oh shit, maybe this movie's utter shit.
This is pretty terrible. Yeah. It starts hot, and then it just descends into brutality. So it was really hard for me, because I told Martina to watch this. I was like, have you seen Spiderhead? She's like, no. I'm like, you gotta watch it. And she was like, what is it? I'm like, I'm just gonna withhold everything. I'm just not gonna tell you anything about this. You're just gonna watch it, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna ask you what you thought. And that was pretty much the answer that she gave.
And I would, as an extra note, I like books and watching movies sort of through like the English class lens. and I felt assaulted by the theme in this movie. Like from the first scene, I was like, you have hit me over the head with what you're trying to get at so hard, I don't even want to watch anymore. So
It was so.
So you
so
caught on
predictable.
right away.
oh yeah, I was cringing from scene
I knew
one.
I knew where it was heading pretty early on. I could see as soon as they introduced the whole Darkenflox thing. I
Yeah,
was like,
right. Yeah.
This is pretty clear where they're gonna head with this, and this is getting a little goofy. But yeah, it just overall pretty garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So go
plot
watch
was Swiss
Spiderhead
cheese.
and drop a little thought in the comments if you feel like it on your personal opinion on Spiderhead. If you have made it this far into our banter.
I'm also glad to see that the three of us share this this reality of believing that Spiderhead was pretty
This
garbage.
is a
Yeah,
shared
I'm
human
sure there's like we
experience.
just fucking rocked a lot of people's world who were like, dude, Spiderhead was like the best shit I watched this year, dude.
Like, it's
Best film
utter
of the year.
garbage.
But I mean, you go on Rotten Tomatoes. We're not the only ones. Thinking
True,
of,
but
you know,
Rotten Tomatoes is also I don't like it. I don't like it. I find they give pretty.
it's not gospel.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not. It really ain't.
Not nearly as
they've-
good as Yelp.
They yeah.
Word.
They gave Mel Gibson's Apocalypto a mediocre score, and I think that's one of the coolest movies I've
Word.
ever seen. In all seriousness, even though it is out there, it's super dope.
Right.
And Rotten Tomatoes dumped on it. So yeah, sure, Rotten Tomatoes is okay, but they also gave Amy Schumer's comedy special like a 98% or something.
Is that
like
right?
that, and I deadpan faced the entire
Yeah,
thing.
Amy Schumer is
So-
not my. It's not my style.
Mine
Not
neither.
Yeah.
my cup of tea, but the Rotten Tomatoes folks love it. Anyways, we are we just bounced off the 2-hour mark there. So we're good to call it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks
Thanks.
again. Thanks for having me here. It was an
Yeah, no
honor.
problem.
I best be coming back to How Many House
Absolutely,
sure.
open offer.
Absolutely.
Cats. Love it. Thanks. How Many House Cats HMHC team.
Of course.
Word. All right. Thanks for watching. If you did, Calvin, you got anything else to say?
No, that was a super fun one. I guess stay tuned for next week's episode. And once again, thank you to Rosso Coffee. Just give it a taste for our little props today. So yeah, we're gonna wrap it at that. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you next week.
Oh, if you want to fund the Slip and Fall Index, remember my email will be in the comments.
Word.
I accept e-transfer.
There we go.
See ya.
Bye.